Welcome to 8 Minutes Reading Episode 1.33, Article 416. Obligation to record. Possessors or owners, as stated in Article 414, preliminary determination of the importance of cultural properties of this code shall collaborate with expert officials to record and take photos of the cultural properties or ancient objects in compliance with the instructions of the ministry or institutions responsible for cultural heritage. Article 417. Measures for not reporting. The competent ministries or institutions shall halt, withdraw, or revoke the permit, license, or certificates from all persons who fail to report their chance discoveries, as stated in Article 411. General obligations to notify about chance discoveries of this code before determining the value and significance of the cultural properties. Part 4. Preventive excavation. Article 418. Required preventive excavation. With permission from the government to build or develop various infrastructures, investment project owners shall have the obligation to do preventive excavation in compliance with the investment law of the Kingdoms of Cambodia. Article 419. Implementation of preventive excavation. Investment project owners shall contact expert officials of the ministries or institutions responsible for cultural heritage or archaeological specialization unit, as in Part 5, Legal Entities. As Archaeological Specialization Unit. Chapter 4, Conservation and Management of Cultural Properties in Natural Protected Areas. Section 2, Management of Natural Resources, Cultural Properties and Ecotourism in Natural Protected Areas, of Book 4 of this code in collaboration with the ministry responsible for environment and natural resources to implement preventive excavation. Article 420. Deemed as state property. Cultural heritage or ancient objects discovered during preventive excavation shall be state property. Article 421. Preventive excavation expense. Investment project owners shall be responsible for preventive excavation expenses. Article 422. Obligation to record. 1. Expert officials of the ministries or institutions responsible for cultural heritage or archaeological specialization units implementing preventive measures shall have an obligation to record and preserve all cultural properties or ancient objects collected from preventive excavation. 2. Movable cultural properties and ancient objects shall be preserved in the state museums for the public interest. Part 5. Legal entities as archaeological specialization unit. Article 423. Accreditation of legal entity as archaeological specialization unit. 1. For the nation's best interest, the ministry or institution responsible for cultural heritage shall give the right to national private legal entities as archaeological specialization units to conduct research, conserve, and repair cultural properties or implement precautionary excavation or restoration excavation on development project sites. 2. Format, procedures, and requirements for registering legal entities as archaeological specialization units shall be determined by legal instruments of the ministries or institutions responsible for cultural heritage. Article 424. Duties of legal entities accredited as archaeological specialization unit. Legal entities as archaeological specialization units shall implement the following activities. A. Conduct research on cultural properties and collaborate with national or international scientific institutions to repair and conserve cultural properties. B. Report precautionary or rescue excavation to the ministries or institutions responsible for cultural heritage. C. Provide recordings of all discovered cultural properties or chance discoveries to the ministries or institutions responsible for cultural heritage after each phase. D. Report on precautionary excavation to the competent authority. E. Collect, compile, and publish research findings. Part 6. Underwater cultural heritage protection. Article 425. Underwater cultural heritage. Underwater cultural heritage refers to movable or immovable tangible cultural properties that were sunk underwater in part or whole for some time or permanently, which include but are not limited to A. Locations, structures, buildings, ancient updates, or human and animal remains. B. Junk ship, boat, ship, plane, other vehicles or their parts and objects. C. Other objects with prehistoric, historical, or artistic value. Article 426. Reporting obligation. Persons shall report to the ministries of institutions responsible for cultural heritage and subnational administrations about any underwater cultural property discoveries or chance discoveries. Article 427. Prohibition for damage, salvage, or destruction of underwater cultural properties. All activities of salvage, damage, or destruction of underwater cultural properties shall be prohibited. Article 428. Protection, scientific evaluation, and exploration of underwater cultural heritage. The ministries of institutions responsible for cultural heritage shall develop legal instruments for protection, scientific evaluations, and explorations of underwater cultural properties. Article 429. Issuance of permits for underwater cultural property survey on activities affecting underwater cultural properties. 1. The ministries or institutions responsible for cultural heritage may issue permits for underwater cultural property services on activities affecting underwater cultural properties. 2. Requirements and procedures for issuing permits for underwater cultural property services and activities affecting underwater cultural properties shall be determined by legal instruments of the ministry responsible for cultural heritage. Article 430. Handling, preservation, and exhibition of underwater cultural heritage. 1. The ministries or institutions responsible for cultural heritage shall handle, preserve, and exhibit discovered movable underwater cultural properties or transport them from the original location by preserving their original value at the museum. 2. Format and museum management procedures shall be determined in legal instruments by the Ministry of Institutions responsible for cultural heritage. Part 7. Dispute resolution and preventive measures. Article 431. Representation in dispute resolution. The ministries or institutions responsible for cultural heritage shall act as a civil party in conflict resolution procedures that affect cultural properties. Article 432. Halting activities threatening or harming cultural heritage. 1. The ministries or institutions responsible for cultural heritage or subnational administration shall halt any work, construction, or clearance in case the site or cultural properties are harmed or destroyed, regardless of whether the sites or cultural properties have been registered in the National Heritage List. 2. The period of halting these activities shall comply with the provisions of this code and applicable laws and legal instruments. Part 8. Promotion and protection of intangible cultural heritage. Article 433. Protection and promotion of intangible cultural heritage. Intangible cultural heritage shall be protected and promoted in compliance with applicable laws and legal instruments. Article 434. Protection and promotion of intangible cultural heritage measures. The ministries or institutions responsible for cultural heritage shall develop legal instruments to protect and promote intangible cultural heritage in compliance with international legal tools concerning intangible cultural heritage, to which the Kingdom of Cambodia is a state party. Thank you for listening. See you in episode 1.34.